Right.
Para cambiar space. Okay, cool. Channel changer. Nobody says that. Everyone, hello. How are you all? ¿Español o inglés? Voy a hablar inglés con je. Si posible. My name is Kevin Ramos Glue, and this is the last stop of our, I think we've spent a year in South America for the past 2 weeks. Ha sido mucho, but we're so excited we saved, I know this is cliche, but we saved the best for last. We've all wanted to go to Buenos Aires, like probably our whole lives, and we've held it up here, and it did not disappoint. Just like if you find your way to one of our schools, they will not disappoint. Like, we're so grateful to be here. This place, like everywhere we walk, it's just so amazing. I'm gonna try out the train station though to see if that, yeah, I'm gonna go. So look, these are the schools. You're gonna get to know us. If you know more about us than we do, or you know about one of the schools than we do about the other, great. You'll still learn a little bit more about the feel of the school and why. The main thing I want to tell you, what we have in common, we are all R1 research universities. That's like the best, right? We're researching important things. We're throwing tons of money at major world-changing research. When you read about things, like we can each probably give examples. For us, it's even the face recognition software on every phone was designed by a Dartmouth professor with a grad student and an undergraduate student from your, like what you'll be next year. And so, and how does that happen? It's great, they're smart, but it also happens with a lot of money being put towards that, and we all have that in common. So here we are. What we don't have in common, you'll also hear about. So think about it, like it's kind of like South American countries. Okay, you have that in common, but you're also so different. So think of it that way, pay attention. Now here we are. We decided to stay on this side of the USA, I'm not sure why. And you're going to hear first from Dartmouth College, Al Norte. Are we in winter here? Yeah. So, oh, that's so cute. Yeah. So, if this is your coldest, there are schools for. There's 2 schools for you. I'll even say Northwestern. She's real. You guys are real. I'm really real deal. You know Frozen? Yes. That's me. 4 seasons though, and so you'll get a sense of who we all are, why we exist. Don't take videos, no Snapchat. Y aquí estamos. So, estamos en el norte. This is Dartmouth College. We are part of the Ivy League. Do you know what that is? Yes. I've got to say, can you stand up this quick and go like this? Like, show them your shirt. Turn around. Like, no, that shirt is so cool. Show them the front, what it says. Does everybody know Kermit? Do you guys know who Kermit is? Yes. How do you know that? Okay, so one of our essay questions at Dartmouth is, just like Kermit the Frog says, it's not easy being green. So Dartmouth's mascot, our symbol, is the green. And the whole point is, it's not write an essay about like why Dartmouth. It's actually about green can be a symbol for something else in your life, right? But it's an opportunity to talk about your identity. I just thank you for wearing that. So good. So this is us. We looked like this since before the United States was created. We're about 7 years older, and we look like this today. We don't look like this today because we're like, we're waiting for development. You know, we're trying to get developed. It takes money and intention to look at strategic planning to still look like this today. We own this, we protect it, we want it to be this green paradise. If you are waiting for buildings to pop up in the next year before you apply to Dartmouth, don't apply to Dartmouth. This is our paradise, our oasis, our getaway. So here's Dartmouth. You have the graduate school, you have the undergraduate school, business school, you'll hear all about. And in fact, the town is included in this photo. It's about 10,000 people in the town. And multi-generation, we are the hub, we're the center of about a 100-mile community where we bring the arts and the culture, the music, all of it. But it's intentionally for some kind of a getaway. So there actually are a number of people who have like ski homes or lake houses up by us. So it's the sense of like where we are is that sense, and plenty of people who make up. But like this is the president's office. I'm looking at it correctly here, and my office is here. And you go down this ridge, that's Vermont, another state, and there's a big river right here that goes all the way down to, who's wearing a New York City sweatshirt? Yeah, we go all the way down to New York City. But if you look where we are, like here's Yale, right in that end. Here's Montreal. We're closer to Montreal, Canada than we are there. In fact, if you're flying internationally, you can literally fly into Montreal to come to Dartmouth. It's easier to fly to Boston or New York because we have transportation by Dartmouth to personally take you up. Concierge style. Ivy League bus, you know what I'm saying? All right. So here's to give you a sense. There's the river that people swim in right on campus. It's literally that's closer to my office than where I park my car. And if that makes you think, oh, can't you be closer to Lincoln Center or like Wrigley Field or something like? No, there's other schools for that. But again, as I said, we'll hear these schools talk about how close they are to so much, and that's their draw. For us, we've had to bring it on campus so that we are the draw for the area. I will point out, I've learned to adjust this presentation in cities like this. Our skies have zero pollution. So I say metaphorically, our school is free from urban and suburban distraction and noise and all of that. But literally our skies will even force my teenage boys, 14 and 17, when you've got the draw of these awful phones, right? Even they will get out of the car at night and go, oh. And there's proof that having wonder and awe in the world, if you can stop and say, wow, and it steals your attention away from evil Facebook and Snapchat, it actually is good for you, right? And so that's a moment of it. But I do love that even my teenage boys will look up at the sky weekly and be like, wow, I can't believe how many stars there are poking through. If that doesn't interest you and you want to see bright lights, big city, there's a school, I think, in the city. So here are it's one Dartmouth. We say that because there are schools, some of our Ivy League schools, where their graduate schools are far away, they're distinct, they're very different. For us, it is really this college experience, yet we happen to be an Ivy League university that's R1. But they're all super connected. I'd say the most connected is the engineering program, where you can take classes at Dartmouth throughout, and you can get an intentional 4 or 5 year degree, depending if you want the master's attached, where you can get a bachelor's of engineering or get a master's all bunched together. You can take classes from the business school or the medical school. Some of those very professors cross over. The reason that's possible is we have the most full-time tenured professors teaching classes at Dartmouth of any Ivy League school. A lot of them, you're going to have all these TAs in the way, teaching assistants, not at us. Pop quiz, if you know Kermit, the Geisel School of Medicine, I'll give you a hint. It was named after a famous doctor who went to Dartmouth who was not a doctor. Who is that? What? Who said that? How'd you know that?
Because he won the proms.
Oh, wow. You already, wow, good for you. So Dr. Seuss, do you know who he is? Yeah, the famous book, Cat in the Hat. But he also wrote the Lorax, which is funny because it's very much about Dartmouth. So I love the fact that the medical school is named after a very not doctor. Here's a snapshot of who we are. I'd rather take a moment to talk about, that's pretty, right? Honestly, you could insert this slide in probably their photos, and it's like, oh my God, that's my school too. All these schools are beautiful, right? And as someone said earlier, when the architecture changes in this city, right, it just becomes a city. Yeah. So that's similar, right? You got to zoom out and realize that it's going to, for ours, you zoom out and it's like, oh my God, this is beautiful, hills and mountains, and we have our own ski mountain. This is so great. But you might be getting anxiety going, oh, please, why is it like that? And there's you zoom out of, gosh, her school, Vanderbilt, and it's like all of a sudden city, 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 and then another school is lake, 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 and city, city, city. Like, that's your choice, that's your taste. We're just being who we are, and your gut reaction to that is honest. So what I'd rather tell you about is, how do you take a school with a 5% accept rate, 5.3% at Dartmouth? How do you do that? And you're going to hear about this at the end of our presentation, some of the why behind this. But it could be like Hunger Games. Do you know that?
Yes.
Because you think about it, it's a lot of competitive people, and everyone's used to being top of their game. But there's definitely unfortunately, it is surprising but it's a very surprising sense of kindness, and that's outside people have told us this. Kindness, cooperation. I would say if all 4,500 students at Dartmouth are independent, that's like, everyone's going this way. They very much are interdependent. Interdependence matters so much more than independence in Dartmouth. And that's coming from a country that kind of has this fierce independence in the United States. Dartmouth is very different in that way. You'll notice smallest Ivy, smallest school here, unbelievably small teaching ratio and average class sizes. I think a slide that's not on here, so some of the reasons why so many people are in research or internships, 2/3 of our students study abroad once, or study in the US, you can do whatever you want, and about 1/3 do it twice, a couple of people do it thrice. And part of the reason you can do that is we're on a quarter system. So you're taking 3 classes for 10 weeks and you're on school all year, but you're never doing, second year you'll do 4 in a row. Otherwise, you always have these strategic gaps. One of them could be your summer. You could actually, when's your summer again? So say that you want to come home for summer here, then you could strategically take that term off at Dartmouth, and that, because you'll have an off term, but then you'll also have strategic terms at Dartmouth that are for internships, and doing them during less competitive times when all the kids at all these great schools are applying in the summer. And then you can study away. If you pay $0 to go to Dartmouth, or you pay the full amount, no matter who you are studying away and getting the same internships and help. And that's why these numbers are so high. What season is that? That's fall or otoño. People travel from all over the world to see Dartmouth. This picture here, that's actually our green. So that's what we call, that was the overhead shot. That's our mascot and where everyone's at play during the day, and it's really the center of campus. So you never know what to do, just show up there, and it's like people are at play and relaxing. There's real winter. I had a student yesterday from Argentina. We have a girl coming. We have 5 Argentinos. I wish I could say 50, but we're here to find more. But we have 5, and one of them wants to major in art. And I told her, good, art is in the word Dartmouth, right? You see the word art there. I said, then you should major in art. And she said, but should I major in econ and minor in art? I said, no, you should major in art. Like, you can also modify that and attach other things, but of course you should major in art. It's wonderful. That is winter. I will say we have snow. We're proud of it. We're actually sad. This year we had less snow in Diciembre, and then we had less snow in Marzo, and it came back in April. That part's a little funny, but we were like, yay, it's coming back. But typically we love a good 4 months of real snow because, again, we have our own ski mountain, we skate on our pond, and like we love that because think of it as winter con recreo, and that's important. This is one of our homecomings. When everyone comes back to Dartmouth, don't worry, everything's okay. Students build that, engineers build it, but the weird thing about Dartmouth, in Paraguay, one kid described it, he's like, I love Dartmouth. And instead of saying it's like a family, una red verde, where you can get jobs through all these alumni, he goes, I love Dartmouth. He went and spoke. It's like a cult. I was like, don't you mean one of their schools? But he was funny. He's like, it's like a cult. I'm like, oh God, why did he say it? But I think his point was, it's like they even tease. I was walking down the street in Buenos Aires and a woman was wearing a green sweatshirt, and I'm like, hey, Dartmouth. Like, it becomes like this thing. And and I'll just say, but like there are other famous universities in the US that if you saw a sweatshirt, honestly, if you saw a sweatshirt that said Harvard, like God bless you, they have like a -5% accept rate probably. But if you saw it here, I'd be like, oh, that person's been to Boston or been to Amazon.com. But if you see a sweatshirt, I'd say from any of these 4 schools, we will chase you through the streets and be like, Hopkins, why do you have that sweatshirt on? All of these schools. And that's why we also have the size and familia. And from that comes a lot of really incredible connections that come through that. Interestingly, Dartmouth, what's weird is we have a uniform and we all wear these hats that say Argentina on it every day, the whole day. Isn't that weird? So my son's name is Agustin Ramos Gleu. Does anyone know Gleu, Argentina? Come on, seriously? Gleu. Huh? Gracias, you're in. I have to accept it. Our driver, it's not that nice. I think that's I think Visa Abuelos founded it from English. Because Gleu is mi apellido. Please tell me it's like, I didn't go today, because I almost want to keep it up here. Just tell me it's lovely. Okay, there you go. How did I do today? So my son's initials are ARG, so I got him this hat. I thought that's pretty cool. All right, the big thing here, super unique. Dartmouth happens to be need blind internationally. If you are looking for a lot of financial aid, don't apply ever to a school that you hate, but there are currently 7 schools in the United States that are need blind internationally. Please remember that like Bowdoin College and Amherst College are still mega universities in the United States when you say universidad, right? But they're more similar to us in the sense that they're a little more rural. They're a lot smaller, but like these are the schools. But I would also argue like if you're doing it just for the money, that'd be like taking a job just for the money. Like there are some more urban schools on that list, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, that have the need blind. But what that means is, don't worry about this slide. That's honestly what it means, right? And by the way, we've only been this since 2018, I believe. And then we had a pause on it during the reality of COVID, because it really comes down to math and numbers. And it's like, you have to have a lot of money and be usually a smaller school to be able to pull this off. But I tell you that. And finalmente, I think if you're gonna take a picture, this one is our podcast. Even if you hated our school or my presentation, this podcast speaks globally about, I hope that's the one. It should be called Admissions Beat. It tells you about how to get into college and why and making your choices. It could literally convince you to apply only to Northwestern and we'll have succeeded. That's fine. It just happens to be our dean is a bit of an expert. So it's not about Dartmouth. It's about getting into schools. And now, Johns Hopkins. They have Argentina colors.
Hello everyone, my name is Nikki Park. I'm a member of the admissions committee at Johns Hopkins University. I also want to say how grateful I am to be here, standing here in front of you all today. This, face-to-face connection with you all really means the world to me, so super pumped to be here. But I do want to go ahead and jump right in, talking a little bit about Hopkins, who we are as an institution. And so that'll take us all the way back to 1876 when Hopkins was founded as the nation's first research university. We were founded with a mission to create knowledge for the world. We like to think that we continue living up to it every single day. We've grown to become really a global institution. We have different academic centers, programs all over the world. And this idea and spirit of continuous learning is definitely something that comes through that research and academia world, but also throughout the Hopkins experience, which you'll see. Our undergraduates get to be a part of this every single day, being the leading research university in the world. It truly is a cornerstone of our identity. Speaking of our undergraduate students, we are comprised of about 5,300 undergraduate students, which puts us in the small to medium-sized range of schools, colleges and universities in the United States. So a bit of a sweet spot there. You'll have that tight-knit community, but also access to the big city, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But more about our students. They're coming from diverse backgrounds, geographies, holding diverse interests and identities. Students at Hopkins represent all 50 states in the US, over 80 different countries worldwide. Around 15% of our student population are international students. Nearly 40% come from racial or ethnic backgrounds that are historically underrepresented in higher education. Almost 20% are first-generation college students, and more than half will qualify for financial aid. We recognize that to be an institution that creates knowledge for the world, we need to ensure that this diversity of background, thought, perspective, experience shows up in our classrooms and across our campus. Diversity also shows up in an academic sense at Hopkins. About a third of our students will study in the humanities and social sciences, so maybe that's psychology, political science, English. A third of our students will study engineering. We have a whole school dedicated to engineering, so lots of different engineering programs. And then about a third of our students will study the natural sciences. It's like chemistry, biology, physics, things like that. We do have 2 different undergraduate schools at Hopkins, the Krieger School of Arts and Sciences and the Whiting School of Engineering. And so while we are a research institution, we do still have our foundation in the liberal arts. Yes, we want our students to create knowledge for the world, We also want them to understand the impact that that knowledge has on society and be able to best share that knowledge with the world around them. And so to do that, our students at Hopkins will study through will get a broad foundation of knowledge through a curriculum that focuses on foundational skills, or as we like to call them, foundational abilities. So no core curriculum where you are required to take classes within specific departments or programs, but instead within these different abilities or buckets. So for example, some of these different abilities are things like creative expression. So if you can imagine, classes from so many different programs will fulfill that creative expression bucket. Maybe it's within engineering, maybe it's within the humanities. Another example is how to engage effectively as a citizen. So these are all the things and skills that we believe are necessary for all of our graduates to have so they can be successful post-Hopkins no matter what that looks like. And so this liberal arts philosophy means that there's so much academic freedom and flexibility. With over 50 different majors and 50 different minors, students have the ability to really craft their own unique academic journey, explore all of their academic interests. I mentioned our 2 different undergraduate schools. In fact, when you apply to Hopkins, you're actually not applying into either one of those 2 schools or into any of the majors or programs. You're applying to the school as a whole. You'll come in as a pre-major no matter what you put on your application. And that is with the exception of one program, our biomedical engineering program. You do have to apply directly into. There is no separate application. You just make it your first choice major on your application. We'll look at all of those applications first. If you're not admitted into that program, you're then automatically considered for the school as a whole. If you have more questions about what that looks like, please feel free to ask me at the end. But because of this, about 16% of our students will double major or add on a minor during their 4 years. And again, that's across disciplines. We take this really interdisciplinary approach where students are able to study everything that they want to, regardless if it seems like they For example, a student that works in our admissions office is a double major in archaeology and chemical and biomolecular engineering. So 2 areas that seem completely different on the surface, but they were able to, craft this own unique academic journey, find the connections between those 2 areas. And of course, all also graduating in 4 years. And so students are not just successful because of the experiences that they have inside the classroom, but also because of the unparalleled access that they have to research and hands-on learning. I mentioned that we were founded as the first research university. We remain the leading research university in this country to this day. To put it into scope for you all, we spend about $3.4 billion, billion with a B, every single year on research. So basically what that means is our undergraduates don't have to compete or fight for any of these kinds of opportunities. Right on our Homewood campus, which is also known as our undergraduate campus, where our undergraduates will live, we have a number of different research labs across all disciplines. So we have wet labs where students are doing what I think of as like traditional research, like with lab coats and beakers and pipettes, that sort of thing. But we also have a rare books collection where students are researching and translating old text. We have an archaeology lab where students are researching the history of African civilization. So just a few examples of labs that we have right on our campus. And then, of course, the Hopkins network extends globally. So students are able to tap into a global network of world-class faculty and research centers and programs. The ones that you're actually seeing here on the screen are located within the Baltimore-Washington region. So really accessible for our students to kind of seamlessly transition into any of the opportunities. But of course, those opportunities extend beyond the Hopkins network. And I'll talk about that in just a bit, but I know when we think of hands-on learning, research may be one of the first things that comes to mind, but it isn't the only way that students are getting these kinds of opportunities. It's also internships, study abroad. Being located in the city of Baltimore, students have some really unique pre-professional experiences. The city is home to a number of Fortune 500 companies, think tanks, policymakers, some of the top tech, healthcare, science companies in the US. So students are able to tap into a number of different industries, and there are a lot of different ways that students can find these opportunities, so many different support systems, advisors, mentors, where students are able to seek these opportunities out. These opportunities also extend beyond the city of Baltimore and beyond the US. We see over 500 students study abroad every single year in 50 different countries. So students are really able to continue this journey of engaging with diverse perspectives by engaging with citizens abroad. Again, really just continuing that journey that I talked about earlier. But I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the city of Baltimore. It really is an integral part of our students' experience at Hopkins. But first, I do want to mention that we are a residential university, so you do get the best of both worlds. When you're on our campus, it's only about 140 acres, which basically means it's a 10 to 15-minute walk end to end. And when you're on the campus, there's quads. It looks like that traditional college campus that you probably all have a vision of in your head. So you have that, your tight-knit community where there's all of your clubs and organizations happening. You can host events. Students are required to live on campus for the first 2 years. For our third and fourth year students, they do move off of campus, but 97% of third and fourth year students will still live within a 3-block radius of campus itself. So sometimes the buildings where the majority of our off-campus students are living, they're actually closer to some of the academic buildings, dining halls, and some of the on-campus buildings. So it very much still feels like you're on campus. And we have a whole office that's dedicated to off-campus housing to help students find housing, the different housing options, whether that is like a townhome, a row home, apartment building, whatever that looks like. There's advisors there to help you with that process. But I want to talk a little bit about the city of Baltimore. This is just a great visual. I know we saw a really zoomed out version of where we're located in the States. But this is our location on the East Coast. It's a bit of a hub. We're in quick distance of places like the nation's capital, DC, which, as I'm sure you can all imagine, can offer students some really cool opportunities. It's just a short 50-minute train ride away. We're also in quick distance of cities like Philly, New York City, Richmond. Campus itself is located within 15 to 30 minutes from the local train station or the airport. So again, just really accessible for students to get around the area. But Baltimore itself is a city fueled by history, culture, creativity, entrepreneurial spirit. So aside from those kind of academic and pre-professional opportunities, Baltimore is a really fun place to be a student. Lots of different opportunities socially, culturally. They call it a city of neighborhoods. So there are 100 plus different unique neighborhoods that have their own vibe. A lot of them are in walking distance of campus. So for example, neighborhoods like Hamden and Charles Village, you can walk to from campus. There are award-winning restaurants, fun and quirky shops. Or maybe you want to explore closer to the inner harbor, the water. We have free transportation for students to get around the entire city, which is really, really awesome. Students are totally taking advantage of that. But students can explore the National Aquarium. There's festivals on the weekend, farmers markets, truly no shortage of things to do in the city. It's also home to 22 different colleges and universities. So that makes for a really vibrant and active college student population. Students can easily connect with other students from other schools. Another form of free transportation called the College Town Shuttle Network will bring students to some of those different neighborhoods around the city, maybe take them to a local sporting rivalry. We're home to 2 different professional sports teams, the Baltimore Orioles and the Baltimore Ravens. I see some nodding, yes, no O's. So students can get discounted tickets to go to the games. It's also fun. But everything I've talked about thus far is not by accident, right? It's a direct result of intentional investments that we've made over the years to ensure that our students are able to live up to that mission of creating knowledge for the world, live a healthy and impactful 4 years on our campus. We are going to spend some time at the end of our individual presentations to talk about financial aid in a little bit more depth. So I'll kind of breeze through this, but just know that we meet 100% of demonstrated financial need for all of our students. So for our domestic and our international students, we'll make sure that whatever your family can contribute, the difference between tuition and your family's contribution to college will meet 100% through no loan programs. So grants, scholarships, things that do not have to be repaid to the university. And then we are going to be need aware for international students. So if you are not a US citizen, permanent resident, DACA, undocumented, or other eligible non-citizen, that means that your family's ability to pay for college, whether or not you're applying for financial aid, will be something that we consider in the admissions process. Again, it's just going to be one piece. We practice what we call holistic admissions review, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a bit. But one more office I do want to shout out is our Life Design Lab. We really want to make sure that we ensure students have long-term success, of course, after they leave Hopkins. And so the Life Design Lab is an office with a vision to create graduates that will achieve all of their life aspirations regardless of background or social capital. So the idea of life design thinks about students really holistically. Every student will have a designated life design educator, who they can start working with as early as their first semester of their first year. So it's not about necessarily just crafting the perfect resume or getting you that first job out of college. It's about thinking about what you want to get out of your life based on different layers of your identity, your values, how that aligns with what you want to do after Hopkins, whether that is maybe continuing your education, working at a nonprofit, going straight into the workforce. Whatever that looks like, we want to ensure that you live a happy, meaningful life. And so that's really the goal of this office. So of course they connect you to all of those opportunities I was talking about earlier, research, internships, other kinds of hands-on opportunities. Make sure that you have a really enriching, integrative learning journey at Hopkins. And so with that, I'll leave you all with a quote from our first president that I think really captures the essence of the Hopkins experience. Our simple aim is to make scholars strong, bright, useful, and true. So with that, I want to pass it off to my colleague, Candace, to tell you all about her lovely university, Northwestern. Trying not to trip over a cord or a chair. Okay.
Hi there, everyone. My name is Candace LeBlanc. I use she, her pronouns, and I work on our international admissions team at Northwestern. I'm also a soon-to-be triple alumna of Northwestern. I received 2 bachelors, a Bachelor of Arts in Creative Writing from our College of Arts and Sciences, a Bachelor of Music and Voice Performance from our Beaton School of Music. That was not enough. I'm currently a Master's of Science candidate studying integrated marketing communication within our Medill School of Journalism. So hopefully if you fall in love with Northwestern one time, maybe you can fall in love with it 3 times, in my case. But we're located in Evanston, Illinois. This is just a lovely view shot of our campus. I'm originally also from a coastal town in California, so we have 3 beaches on our campus, which if that gets you excited, definitely consider us. We're located around 5 kilometers north of Chicago. I'm a little bit biased, but I do think Chicago is one of the best cities in the world. It's the 3rd largest in the United States, and there's plenty of things for you to do. Whether it's going to art museums completely free as a Northwestern student, if you're a fan of any kind of sports team, whether it's football, basketball, soccer, hockey, American football, we have them all within Chicago city limits. One of my favorite events that happens every year is actually happening this Wednesday, and it's called NU Day at Wrigley, where we'll bus all of our undergraduates down to Wrigley Field to see a Chicago Cubs game. This is last year's hat, and you also get a free hat every year. But we are located in Evanston, Illinois, and so Evanston is a kind of very residential, walkable community. It's the kind of place that if you're wearing a Northwestern shirt or really any kind of purple, someone's gonna stop you down the street and say, "Go Cats" to you. But all of our students live on campus for their first 2 years. That being said, you have choice as to where you live. So whether that's in a more larger residential building like our residential halls, or our smaller, more intimate residential colleges that typically have a theme. So we have an engineering residential college and an international studies residential college. Your 3rd and 4th year, you can choose to continue living on campus or you can move off campus. I say it in air quotes because my 3rd year I moved off campus, but I was so close to my classes I could still connect to Wi-Fi. So if you take anything away, you do not need a car when you come to Northwestern. So I know I mentioned that I'm a student alumna of 3 of our 6 undergraduate schools. I want to talk about each of them briefly. We have roughly 8,000 undergraduates, making us the largest school represented here today, but by no means a large school in the grand scheme of US universities. Also, your in-class experience is most definitely going to be small. So you have a 6-to-1 student to faculty ratio, 80% of your classes will have 20 students or fewer. The smallest class I ever took at Northwestern was a 2-person keyboard skills, like piano class, in which the other person dropped the class. So it became private instruction in piano, which I desperately needed. But roughly half of our undergraduate population is going to be in our Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences. There you'll find majors in the humanities like international studies, economics, critical race studies, and also natural sciences like biology, chemistry. Working our way quickly around the circle, our 2nd largest schools are McCormick School of Engineering, housing disciplines like mechanical engineering, biomedical engineering, any adjective plus engineering, as well as our applied mathematics program. In our engineering school, we really try to foster the idea of being whole brain engineers. So yes, our engineers will have exposure to calculus and to physics, but we also want to make sure that if you're creating world-class research, you also are able to talk to people about it. So with that in mind, all of our engineers are required to take a public speaking course. We also do have 2 more arts-based schools on our campus, our School of Communication, housing disciplines like radio, television, and film, dance, theater, as well as our Beaton School of Music, our conservatory on our campus, housing performing-based majors like voice in my case, piano, violin, pretty much anything you can play, and non-performance majors. But what's great about having arts-based schools on your campus, whether or not you formally want to study the arts, is that you still have accessibility to arts and music. So whether that's being able to take lessons as a non-major, being in an ensemble for academic credit, or just cheering on your friends in one of our nearly 200 shows any given year. In our School of Education and Social Policy, we have both an education track and a major known as learning and organizational change, which is really popular for folks on a pre-business track since we don't have a formal business major. Lastly, we have the school that wins the game for having the longest name, but only one undergraduate major, the Medill School of Journalism, Media, Integrated Marketing, Communication. There's only one undergraduate major in that school, and that's journalism. I'm really proud to offer an entire school dedicated to the discipline. So that's a brief overview of our 6 undergraduate schools. When you're applying to Northwestern, we'll ask you to select one of these in an academic discipline that you're interested in studying. That being said, you still have lots of flexibility either to add additional areas of specialization, whether that may be a major, minor, certificate, across schools, or just take classes for fun. A lot of that academic flexibility is fostered by the fact that we're on the quarter system. Without getting too deep into the math, your average Northwestern student will take around 48 classes at the end of 4 years. Compared to a semester-based school, you may be taking around 35 to 40 classes. To put those 8+ additional classes in perspective, your average minor at Northwestern is anywhere between 8 to 10 classes. So with those extra classes, you can take classes for fun, try organic chemistry, fail it, realize you don't want to be a doctor. All of that is built within the curriculum itself. And of course, learning doesn't happen just inside the classroom. There's lots of opportunities for students to apply their knowledge outside. So whether that may be through research, in your case, additional study abroad, or internships. One of my favorite research opportunities is called the Circumnavigators Grant. And one lucky student is given the opportunity to study one question fully funded across the world. There's only 2 rules behind it. One, you must go to at least 3 separate countries, or pardon me, let me get it right. 3 separate continents and 5 separate countries. Completely paid for by Northwestern. And I've been fortunate enough to have 2 friends who have done it in the past. My friend Chris, who was a philosophy and music double major on the pre-med track. He studied how Baha'i music looks across the world. And my friend Hannah, who was a social policy and music education double major, she studied how gender affects music education across the world. So she started off in the United States, went to the United Kingdom, Kenya, Greece, India, New Zealand, and literally went around the world in 180 days, completely paid for by Northwestern. Of course, we also want to make sure that we have opportunities for innovation on our campus. The biggest space for that on our campus is called the Garage. It is not literally a garage, but instead the name's inspired by the kind of startup culture of think Apple, Microsoft. But students can either take classes in the Garage, receive funding for businesses that they want to start, or just tinker around in that space. So lots of opportunities to make your ideas come true in that way too. And this is just a slide of some of the organizations that Northwestern alumni go to work for. So whether you're interested in working in public sector, private sector, nonprofit, there's lots of opportunities in Northwestern connections. But I think what's also really great about this slide is that these are not companies that students are working in, 15 years, 20 years after graduating. Instead, when I look at this slide, I see my friend Aisha, who works in marketing at NBC Universal living in LA. Or my friend David, who works at NPR. If you've ever seen Tiny Desk Concerts, he's the guy who films those. So these are things that you'll have access to do immediately after graduating. And of course, I think I've talked a lot about why students apply to Northwestern. I think I want to talk about why students stay at Northwestern. I believe that partially has to do with the collaborative community that's fostered there. So as you can see, we have over 500 student organizations. One could argue that's if anything, too many, or at least a lot. And these range from 15 a cappella groups. Have any of you seen the movie Pitch Perfect? Yes. That's based off of Northwestern. We have a Troublemakers, but if 15 a cappella groups is not enough for you, it's very easy to start your own student organization. All you need are 4 friends, a faculty advisor, boom, you got a new student organization. And lastly, this is just a brief list of some of our campus traditions. My favorite one to talk about, though, is Dillo Day, which is short for Armadillo Day. It happens once a year, every year. Actually, just happened this past Saturday. And it's a day-long music festival completely free for Northwestern students. So we've had artists in the past like Lenny Wolf, Tanashi, Chance the Rapper, Kendrick Lamar, and GMT. If you're a fan of Shrek, we've had Smash Mouth in the past. And it's a day truly for students to have fun. So even though this week is fully the start of finals week at Northwestern, but if you wanted to study this past Saturday on Dillo Day, it would have been really hard because we close the libraries on Dillo Day. So it's truly just a day for students to have fun. And with that, this QR code takes you to some additional ways to engage with Northwestern, whether it's following us on social media. As our former social media director, I'm legally obligated to ask you to follow us on social media, but also if you want to take a virtual tour, connect with the current student, lots of ways to do that. See some phones down, but with that, I'm going to pass it off to my lovely colleague, Sabrina from Vanderbilt.
All right, everyone, thank you so much for being here. My name is Sabrina Paxton. I'm an admissions officer at Vanderbilt University, which is the last school we're going to talk about today. So if you don't like the cold, you don't like the snow, Vanderbilt is the place for you. We are down in Nashville, Tennessee. So let's get started with just kind of some fast facts about the university. We do have just about 7,000 undergrads on campus, which places us really nicely in kind of the medium size of the universities represented here. So I like to say that you can walk to campus, see new friends, but you're gonna sit in a classroom of new faces and new ideas every semester, but it's not so big that you're just another number in the classroom. We do have graduate students on campus, so Vanderbilt actually has 10 total schools. So we have 4 undergraduate campuses or schools and 6 graduate schools, but they are all on one main campus. So what that means is that there's a lot of collaboration that happens. A lot of our graduate professors teach undergraduate classes, and a lot of our undergraduates get to help out with graduate level research. We also do have 3 hospitals on campus, so if anyone is thinking about pre-med, a lot of our students will do job shadowing and research there as well. We do have just about a 10% international student population, over 73 countries represented. We have all 50 United States, so everyone is living and learning together from all different backgrounds, all different walks of life, and they are able to share their experiences and their culture on campus together. So like I mentioned, we do have 4 different undergraduate schools, and when you apply to Vanderbilt, you can't just apply to Vanderbilt. You do have to pick which one of the 4 schools you would like to apply into. Our largest school is our College of Arts and Science. It has about 40 of the 70 majors that we offer, and it's our liberal arts college, so a lot of like the STEM majors, English, history, political science, econ, kind of all of those majors you typically see in a liberal arts institution. The next school that we have is our School of Engineering. This school has 7 different majors, including biomedical engineering, mechanical engineering, and this one has our computer science major as well. The next school that we offer is our Peabody College of Education and Human Development. This school kind of has 2 different tracks. So we do have the education piece, which is K through 12 education, special education. If you want to become be a teacher, you get lots of student teaching time in the classroom, interacting with students and learning from teachers. And then the other track within the school is our Human Organizational Development major. So this is our version of a business major. It's a lot of leadership skills, learning how large organizations are run. In your junior year, so your 3rd year on campus, you take a semester off and you do an internship in any business area that you are interested in, so you really get kind of that hands-on learning in those different career fields. Then there's also a business minor that you can add on to this major or to any one of our majors if you would like. And then our last school is our Blair School of Music, which is small, but it's small on purpose. It is conservatory style. You get lots of one-on-one practice times with your professors, and there's no graduate students in this school, so you're only working with undergraduate students, so you're not competing for spots in groups or orchestras or anything like that. So like I said, you do have to apply into one of the 4 schools, but like all of my colleagues here, once you're on campus, everything is open to you. So you can double major, you can and minor. You can take classes in any one of the 4 schools. One of the most popular classes on campus, actually for all students, is the history of country music. If you know anything about Nashville, country music is a big thing. And a lot of students take that, even though they're not in the Blair School of Music. So like I said, we have about 7,000 undergrads on campus, which means we get to keep our class sizes really small. The average class size is about 25 to 30 students, probably just a little bit bigger than the students in this room right now. So you really get to know your professors. And this is a way a lot of students will find research projects. All professors and departments on campus are either doing a research project, writing a book, going on a trip. There's a professor that brings a group of students down to Antarctica every single year, so you can get involved in that on campus if you want. But there is lots of ways to get involved in research as early as your freshman year, so you don't have to wait to be an upperclassman on campus. All right, a little bit about our community. So one thing that does make Vanderbilt a bit unique is that our students are required to live on campus all 4 years. So they are there for the entire time that they are on campus. There are different options for students. So, first year you're going to be living in a 2-person dorm room, but then after that first year, there's options for like apartment style housing where you have your own room, or there's a couple different houses on campus as well. But what's important about that is that our students are still living together on campus, even as a junior and a senior, and they're still in the dining hall. They're still part of the organizations, which means they can really become a mentor for the underclassmen. So your first couple of years on campus, you have someone that you can go to say, who's the best professor for this class? Or I like to sing, what a cappella group should I join? Things like that. Speaking of groups, we have over 475 organizations on campus. Over 100 of those are cultural based. You can see a whole list of them down there in the middle. There's always an opportunity to start your own organization as well if for some reason you can't find one that you want to join. And the 475, it's really easy. You just need a group of friends, a faculty advisor, and you can start at any club that you would like. We also have Division I sports. We're part of the SEC conference, which is a really big Southern conference in the United States. So a lot of our students will go to baseball games, basketball games, football games, and those tickets are all free for all students, so you don't have to pay for them, and it is a really fun thing for our students to do on the weekend. To show their Vanderbilt school spirit. But a big part of community life is the city of Nashville. So you can see Nashville is kind of in the southern part of the United States. It is a big city. We are also close to Atlanta, which is a really large international airport, but Nashville must have its own international airport. You can definitely get down here fairly easy, but I just want to go to the next slide because Vanderbilt is very much located in the center of the city of Nashville, so it has a very contained campus, but you can walk around and you can see trees and green lawns, and then you can walk right off and see the city. So kind of like Kevin was talking about, where you zoom out from Dartmouth and it's the woods, I think he said it was. You zoom out from Vanderbilt and you see the city right around it. So it's actually called Music City. Has anyone been to Nashville before? I've been asking this everywhere we went. Okay, well, come check it out. We're called Music City, so we get over 20,000 concerts every single year, and all kinds of music, like Bad Bunny was in town a couple weeks ago, so that was pretty cool. And we also raffle off tickets for students all the time. We also have professional sports teams in Nashville, a lot of really amazing neighborhoods with really good restaurants that students can just walk to. You don't need a car to get around the city. It's a very walkable city. You can see some of the companies that we have in Nashville, but we do have a career center that helps our students find opportunities to get internships, maybe during the summer, or to help them get a job once they graduate. The career center will do practice interviews with you and look at your resume. And over 70% of our students do at least one internship their time on campus. Although I was talking to a tour guide who's a senior the other day, and she has already done 5 internships, and 2 of them were abroad. So they definitely get out and get involved in the community around them. Okay, this is our financial aid slide, although I'm not going to focus too much on it because A, it's very similar to my peers, and B, we're going to talk more about financial aid. One thing I do want to mention for Vanderbilt that is specific to us is that we do have a good number of merit scholarships that are open to international and domestic students. We don't look at international or domestic students any differently in our merit aid process. We have about 250 scholarships that we give out every single year. They are full tuition. The important thing with this, though, is that you do have to apply for them. They have a separate application. So you first, apply to Vanderbilt, and then you also have to apply to the scholarships. So, and it is a little bit of an earlier deadline. We'll talk about deadlines here in a minute, but if you want to apply for the scholarships, they do have a bit of an earlier deadline. So just be looking out for those. You can find all that information online, or I can answer more specific questions after this presentation. And then this is our contact us slide. We also have an Instagram if you would like to follow us. We do student takeovers. So students will kind of film themselves walking around campus, going to their dorm, their dining hall, their classroom. So if you kind of want to see what a day in the life of a Vanderbilt student looks like, that's a really good way to do it. And then we also have a virtual tour as well. So I know none of you have been to Nashville, so if you want to check out the virtual tour, you can kind of virtually walk around our campus. It's kind of a good way to get a sense of what campus looks like. Okay, so that was the end of the university-specific part of this presentation. Now we're all going to kind of talk to you guys about more general information about the application process, financial aid. These slides, feel free to take pictures of them. Also, they apply to a lot of different universities in the United States. So they apply to all of our schools, but also a number of other universities. So it's just kind of more general information. But what I want to start off with today is talking about holistic review. If you ever see a school say they partake in holistic review, holistic applications, what it really means is that there are no GPA cutoffs or test scores that you have to get to apply or to be admitted, and there's no one part of the application that's any more important than another. We look at everything that you send us and really do our very best to see who you are as a whole person, how you fit into our campus, and if we would be a good fit for you. Because as we've all kind of talked through our universities, we're all different. We all have different kind of students on campus. We're all located in different areas. So that idea of fit is really important. So kind of all the things on the screen we'll go through. The first thing I want to talk about is academics. So we always look at your grades and your transcript, but also the rigor of your curriculum. So I know you guys probably all go to different high schools in the area. We will look at what curriculum you have offered at your school. So some schools offer AP, some offer IB, honors, some offer, the national curriculum, right? None of those are more highly sought after in our admissions process. We just look at what you have available to you and what you can take within your school. And we hope that within your school, you're taking the most rigorous classes and challenging yourself, but never feel like you have to go to a neighboring school to take an IB program or something like that. And we really read the context of understanding where you're coming from and what you have available to you. The next thing that we will look at are test scores if submitted. So during the pandemic, a lot of schools went test optional, and testing referred to SAT and ACT. And now some schools are going back to requiring testing. So my best advice here is to go onto websites, talk to admissions officers about whether or not schools are requiring testing. For the schools here, Vanderbilt, Northwestern, and Johns Hopkins are all test optional. Dartmouth has gone back to requiring testing, and that's kind of a good snapshot. Give them the look, give them the dirty look. That's kind of a good snapshot of what the United States is looking like, so definitely go onto websites and see. But if a school does say test optional, I will say it really is optional. It's truly up to students if they want to submit testing or not. We don't have a preference one way or another. We're not going to assume if you don't send us the test score that they must have, bombed their test and did terrible. We know there's a lot of reasons why you may not submit testing. But those are kind of data points, right? Those are numbers that we can look at. But like I said, we want to get to know more about your personality. So we'll do this through extracurriculars, what you do outside of the classroom. It can be anything. It can be school clubs, it can be sports, but it also can maybe be like a part-time job, family responsibilities at home, maybe babysit younger siblings, volunteering in your community or your church, whatever it is. However you spend your time outside of the classroom, feel free to put that down on the extracurricular chart. We will also look at letters of recommendation. So schools require different numbers. All of us require a letter from a counselor, which would hopefully be a college counselor, but we do know a lot of international schools don't have college counselors. So it could be just a counselor at your school, someone in administration at your school, an EdUSA counselor can help out with that as well. There are a lot of different people that you can turn to for this letter. It's really just helpful information on you as a student, kind of the context of where you're coming from and things like that. And then schools will require teacher letters of recommendation. I believe all of us here require 2 teacher letter recommendations. Again, just teachers who have taught you and have worked with you and who can speak to who you are in the classroom and how you impact your peers and things like that. And then the last thing that we will look at is your essay. So if you're applying through the Common App, which is the most common way to do it, they give you essay prompts, but one of the prompts is very open-ended, so you can really write about whatever you want. Think about it as this is the way that you are really putting your voice forward. This is where we get to hear you the most out of the entire application. So share a story, share something that's passionate, that you're passionate about. Whatever it is you'd like to write about, that's fine. We're not looking for a specific topic, but we just want to learn more about you. So other things on here, interviews. Some schools still offer interviews. I would say a lot of schools are going away from that, or if they have them, they're virtual. So you guys can do them even down here. Don't feel like you have to travel to the States just to do that. And then we're going to talk about financial aid. So I'm going to leave that one there. But yeah, that's kind of the idea of holistic, bringing your entire application, all those pieces together to hopefully, as much as we can, get a picture of who you are. So that is kind of that, and I'm going to hand it over to Nikki to talk about actually applying to these schools.
Okay, so I do want to just talk about a few logistical things about the application process. So you've done your research, you're now ready to apply to these institutions. I'm not going to go line by line and talk about how you can apply to each institution. There's a few little differences between each of us, but I do want to just talk about the different application platforms. So you can either apply to any of our 4 universities through the Common application or through the Coalition on Score application. Whichever one you want to apply through, please feel free to. We don't have a preference for which one that you apply through. It's going to provide us with all of the same information, all those different components that Sabrina was just talking about. But you can apply through a number of different ways, or different rounds, I should say. So all 4 of us offer what we call early decision, which is an early admissions plan. And so for those of you who don't know what early decision is, this is a round where you are only applying to one school, because when you apply early decision to a school, you're signing an agreement yourself as the student, your parent or guardian, as well as your school counselor, saying that if you are admitted into this institution, you'll be enrolling. We'll see you on our campus in the fall, you'll be matriculating. So these are for students who know 100% for so many different reasons, right? Academically, socially, financially, culturally, there's a lot of different things that go into that decision-making process. But you know 100% that that school is your #1 school, but you're only applying to that one school because it is a binding round. So with the early decision rounds or early plans, this means you apply earlier, the deadlines are earlier. So for early decision 1 in Hopkins and Vanderbilt's case, we have 2 different rounds, but that's going to be the same as kind of that regular just early decision for Northwestern and Dartmouth. The deadline will typically fall in early November within the first week. With applying earlier, this means that you'll actually get to hear back earlier as well. So for early decision, or early decision 1, you'll hear back in mid-December. For Hopkins and Vanderbilt, this early decision 2 round, the only difference between early decision 1 and early decision 2 is actually just going to be the timeline. So early decision 2, the deadline is going to be a little bit later. It's typically on the same day as the regular decision deadline within that first week of January. So maybe you just need an extra couple of months to gather some more materials. You're writing an essay still. Maybe you're waiting on a letter of recommendation, or you just need an extra couple of months to make that decision. Again, it's a binding agreement that you're signing. You're agreeing to come to that school if you're admitted. So big decision. And with early decision 2 at Hopkins and Vanderbilt, you'll hear back earlier than regular decision, despite having the application deadline on the same day. So for early decision 2, you'll hear back in mid-February whether or not you were accepted. And then of course, if you don't want to apply through a binding round, you want to apply to multiple different schools, that is what regular decision is for. And so again, the deadline to apply typically falls in the first week of January, and you'll hear back anywhere between mid-March to April 1st. And you'll have until May 1st to make a decision on whether or not you want to go to that school, if you want to matriculate based on, all of your acceptances, whatever that looks like. So know that your financial aid package will remain the same across all the rounds that you apply through. So you're not going to get a different package based on whether or not you apply through early decision 2, or regular decision. I do want to make a note that while these 4 universities only offer what's called early decision, that's actually not the only type of early plan that you can apply through. There are other types of early plans like early action. Some schools have what they call restrictive early action. And they may be binding, they may not be binding. So it's really important to understand the round that you're applying through. So just important to go to university websites, talk to admissions officers for each specific university, because you do want to know which round that you're applying through, whether it's binding or not, so you know exactly what you're getting into. I want to pass it off to my colleague Candace to talk a little bit about financial aid, because there's a lot of important words and vocabulary to understand within that realm.
Yes, I already see a phone out. I'm going to recommend, if you want to know more about the nitty-gritty specifics about our institutions when it comes to financial aid, you can find it all here and also on our websites. But what I want to do is go through some of the terms that are on this slide. So if you are applying for financial aid, the 2 most common types of financial assistance or financial aid that you'll hear about is need-based financial aid and merit-based financial aid. Need-based financial aid is exactly that. It's based off of how much financial assistance your family needs. And we all offer need-based financial aid. So using Northwestern as an example and simple math, because I was not a math major, that if the cost of Northwestern is $5, and after filling out the CSS profile through the College Board, so giving your family's income, if you have siblings that are also paying tuition, if you own a home, the value of your home, and Northwestern deems that your family is able to contribute $1. Northwestern will cover the remaining $4 through grants and scholarships without loans. On the other hand, there are some schools that also do offer merit-based financial aid. And merit-based financial aid is not based off of how much financial assistance your family needs, but instead, what is the merit that you bring to that institution? So whether that's the strength of your grades, whether that's being a recruited athlete, your musical prowess. You can see, just even looking at this last column, how merit-based aid is different at pretty much every US university. So I recommend that if you are interested in merit-based financial aid, that you ask any institution that you'd like to apply to these 3 questions. 1, do you offer merit-based financial aid? 2, who is eligible for merit-based financial aid? Using just the schools represented here as an example, for Northwestern specifically, we only offer merit-based aid to some recruited athletes and some musicians that are being in school music. After asking those first 2 questions, I'd also recommend asking, what do I need to do to be considered for merit-based financial aid? Considering how, just using an example of the schools represented here today, if you'd like to be considered for merit-based financial aid at Johns Hopkins, no need to apply. As you submit your application, you're already considered for merit-based financial aid. But as Sabrina mentioned for Vanderbilt, if you'd like to be considered for merit-based aid at Vanderbilt, you will need to submit an additional application. This is confusing. Once again, the biggest advice I can give you is to ask specifically to each institution if they offer merit-based aid. The biggest thing to know is that in most cases, pretty much any case, merit-based aid is going to be added to your need-based financial aid. On the other hand, when Sabrina was talking about holistic admission, that there are 2 different types of ways that universities will read applications, and that's need aware and need blind. For universities that are need blind, if you think of all the things that are in your application, your grades, bless you, your grades, your letters of recommendation, your activities, your writing, if you decide to submit or if you need to submit your testing, those 5 things. For schools that are need blind, they're not looking at whether or not you need financial assistance, they are only looking at these 5 things. On the other hand, for universities that are need aware, they're not only looking at the fact that you need financial assistance, instead that financial assistance is going to be considered in tandem to the rest of the things in your application. So that doesn't mean that, oh, if I need financial aid, should I just apply to Northwestern and say, I don't need aid? No, please request financial aid. That's why we do have it available. On the other hand, like Kevin mentioned before, do not apply to all the 7 schools in the United States that are need blind to international students, because they are all very different institutions. So that is a brief overview of financial aid. This slide here takes you to a QR code. I'd actually like all of you to take your phones out to scan this code. I know you had to register for this event through Education USA, but this just lets us know that you were here, as well if you'd like additional ways to engage with all of our institutions. I know the interface is Northwestern, but say if you're like, I don't care about purple, I really want to go green, it's going to give you contact with each of our institutions. Please feel free to fill it out to know additional ways to engage with each of our institutions. But with that, I'm going to shimmy on down and invite my colleagues up here to join me. And we'd love to answer some of your questions. And so if you have a question that you would like to ask each of us individually, I'm going to encourage you to ask it to each of us now. But with that, does anyone have any questions off the bat?
Hi, my name is Mia. I wanted to ask you, if I have a very specific profile, like a really good profile, but I want to go to any university, knowing that I will be needing, let's say, campaign, should I apply or should I down? What do you recommend?
Sure. I mean, I'm going to recommend that if you're applying to a school and you know that they are going to commit to, like for all of us, that we're going to meet a 100% of your financial need if you apply for financial aid, I would say apply. If you know that you need money, I'm also going to know that you need money and I'm going to give it to you. That's my first jump, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, definitely apply to the school. Most of us probably have like fee waivers for the application process that you can get, but applying with need is not going to hurt, like Candace said, it's not going to hurt your chances. Like, it's a different pool that you're in because we all, except for Dartmouth, they're special, but we don't have we just have a budget, right? But if you're an amazing student and we want you on campus, like that is the first step. The first step is we look at you as a student. And then we put you all into this pool and say, okay, well, we don't have this much money, like, let's figure that out. But we really we all fight for you guys. Like, we want you at our school, like, we're there in committee, like, this girl is amazing, like, we need to make this financial aid work. So definitely apply. That financial aid piece is just one part. So don't be scared of need aware.
Yes.
No. Yeah. And I mean, I think there's 7 need aware schools, or need blind schools. Sorry. And so.
And you might hate 3 of them.
Yeah.
And if you really hate them, they're not worth it, right? Maybe because you might have opportunity. But there's 2 things I'd say is one, she just said it, we look for chances to admit, right? Despite that crazy denial rate, we're in admissions, right? We're looking for chances to admit. And the other thing is I love to say, you miss every shot you don't take. So unless, if the fee gets in the way, financially, then that is not a problem. But what's the worst that can happen, you know? So I'm a believer in do it because at each of their 3 schools, they still have some incredibly low income kids. It's just maybe fewer or whoever, how they have to be more intentional, but they're there. It's not I will say maybe at some schools in the US, need aware can mean a lot of things. This need aware is different. Some schools need aware means all the international kids are paying at least 75% or something. That's not it. We wouldn't be here investing this money if that were true. But thank you, we're encouraging you.
If there is a school that we really love, and we're thinking about going early decision. Now we know that usually early decision has a lot of competitive participants. Should we maybe opt for a regular decision if we feel like maybe we don't have as many extracurriculars because maybe we didn't get a chance as internationals, or should we give it a try for early decision?
I can take this one. So I actually think it's the opposite. If you know 100% that you want to commit to a school, I would definitely consider early decision. Just speaking for Hopkins, we admit anywhere between 50 to 60% of our incoming class during those first 2 early decision rounds, and we receive far less applications. So I know you talked about the competitive nature of the early decision pool. These are all kids who know 100% that Hopkins is their, top choice. But we're going to review applications in the exact same manner in early decision as we do regular decision. There's no difference in the evaluation and selection process. But come regular decision, more than half of the seats in that class are going to be filled, and we're going to receive far more applications. So I definitely would consider early decision a lot more if you do know 100%, but great question.
Yeah, like I'll give you a quick, so you guys, it's hard when you're thinking about us because all you think about is impossible. But when I was in college, I studied abroad outside my university, and Buenos Aires was my first choice, again, because I thought my family would be here. I applied early decision to Buenos Aires to a program, and it was full. It was so popular. And then I applied anywhere else in South America because I knew I didn't want to go to Europe. And they were like, Chile or Ecuador. I'm like, okay. And then Chile was filling up, so I went to Ecuador. In the end, I found my place there, and I loved it. But like, I applied early, so to speak. I put it all in Argentina because I knew, and later, 30 years later, I was right. I love it here. But like, I knew if it comes, I'll take it. I don't care what it is. If they put me in a house with an elderly couple, with young family, I didn't care. I wanted Argentina so badly. But you have to want it like burning in your stomach that you're like, I'll buy a winter jacket or I'll learn to play guitar, whatever it takes to go there. That's when you know early decision.
What happens if you don't get in early decision? Like, I know some schools for you, others give you wait list, and every school has their own choice. So
Sure, that's fair. Okay, so for Northwestern, since we only have one early decision and one regular decision round, there's three options. Yeah, three options for each. I wasn't a math major. For early decision, you can be admitted. Yeah, you're coming. See you in the fall.
And you're stuck.
You're stuck unless, or you're stuck. And I will say that, like, if financially does not work out, that is the one way of getting out of that. Mm-hmm. But the other option is that you're deferred. We try not to defer students. Like, we want to give you a firm yes or no. And there's a variety of reasons why a student may be deferred, but we will give that decision to the student that feels the most just decision. In which case, that means that you are automatically put into consideration for a regular decision round. There's nothing additional you need to do. All you need to do is just say, yes, I'd like to continue consideration for regular decision. You could be denied, in which case you are not eligible for consideration during a regular decision round. More than welcome to either apply as a transfer student if you go to a different institution, or apply once again that following, I was gonna say fiscal year, academic year, once again a first year student. And so the same thing happens for regular decision. It's just that time, instead of referring to, for regular decision, you can be accepted, you can choose us, you can not choose us. You can be denied, in which case similar to denial in that regular decision, that early decision round. And then for waitlisted students, admission will be, what's the word in English? But admission will be based on whether or not we have space, ability in the shaping of our overall class.
We have the same where we have deferrals, like she just said. Two things I want to add. If you're deferred from ED, from early to regular, you are no longer binding. So once you are deferred, then you can apply to other schools. Like at that point, the binding goes away. And also, if you apply early, you're deferred to regular. At that point, at least for Vanderbilt, you will get a decision. We will not place you on the wait list to make you wait even longer and longer and longer.
We potentially will do that. We try not to.
Right. So my answer is quite similar to Dartmouth. We only have the only round. Sometimes when we defer kids early, or when we list kids in regular, oftentimes they'll write and say, what can I do to get off? And the fact is, like, if you got deferred to wait list, you really were close, right? My advice is you don't have to do anything else. We know you can check a box that says I'm still interested. My advice is do what I did. Start falling in love with the schools that love you. And then maybe it still works out. But like, I loved Ecuador. It changed my life, and it still opened up these opportunities for me. And I didn't hate. I wasn't like, Argentina, I'll never go there. Like, it was just like, all right, that's a different space in my life. But I always say that, like, especially in regular decision, when you get waitlisted, they're like, what can I do to get into Dartmouth? I'm like, start to like love the schools that actually said yes to you, and they're awesome too. If you're applying to us and this, you're applying to all great schools, and if you're this smart, you're gonna be great at any school. And then if it works out, it works out. But if it doesn't, allow your heart and brain to absorb some other options too.
Yeah, it's the exact same as those two responses. It's possible that you get deferred. It's not very likely. We don't like to defer students, but if you do get deferred into regular decision, your binding agreement goes away. Yeah, exact same. I don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Hi, my name is Yaya, and how can I improve my extracurriculars activities? Because I'm a volleyball player, which means I train every day, I play every weekend. Volleyball is really my passion, so I don't want to quit, but I don't know what else to do because I don't have time for applying for a job or volunteering, so I don't know what to do, because volleyball is literally my only volleyball is literally my only extracurricular activity, so I don't know what to do. I feel like you have a good answer.
Thanks.
He's good at giving advice. My answer to you is that's fine, because that's clearly what you're passionate about, right? And I'm sure it's not just I play volleyball, like you train, but then you also do tournaments, and I don't know, maybe you like do volunteers like within volleyball, like do you teach camps or things like that? I don't know, but we have students that do like throw themselves into things. Like another big one is like band. Like band takes up a ton of time, or like debate, right? Debate takes up a ton of time. So that's fine if that's what you are doing. Like some students, they call it spiky or well-rounded. Like you're spiky to Vanderbilt, or not Vanderbilt, volleyball. You're not as well-rounded, but we don't prefer one student over another.
And just, I would focus on like, it's clearly a burning passion. And so if you can demonstrate that why it's such a burning passion, like maybe it offsets the fact that you're so academically like crazy all that you have to do everything perfectly, and you go out there and you just smack the ball and you like having teammates, but school's competitive. Tell us why. Because volleyball's no more, or frankly, you probably think less important than someone who does laboratory work, part-time job, and braids their grandmother's hair. But like, it doesn't matter. What matters is why you do it. Because like, frankly, if you only did volleyball because you're in the US, it's like your parents are signing you up for these expensive leagues, you can just tell that you're like a puppet going through it. Like, just show us why. And then that's way more important than the other. And these guys have heard the stories, but I could come up with a million of them where a kid, part-time job is their biggest thing, and they told us why. It's like, there's so many different things. They like this one, a kid trained a parakeet as one of his favorite jobs because it just released him from the stress of being from a working family where he had to work in the family's Chinese restaurant and being a star student because that was his job as an immigrant. And then training the parakeet, he was like, man, I can fail all day long, and if this thing learns to ride a skateboard, I feel pretty good about myself. And I'm like, that's an interesting story. I'm still telling it, right? So the what doesn't matter as much as the why, but don't brag about, like, if you're the best volleyball player and you're the second best, that's not the competition. It's like, what the heck do you do? Why did you give up so much stuff for it?
Yeah.
And you have no regrets. Good for you.
So we're not at a disadvantage in this case.
No.
The other thing, also kind of a practical thing, is that when you're submitting your application, we'll ask you how many hours a week you do your activity. And so I tell students that if any of your, don't lie, but like if any of your activities are more than 20 hours a week, in my brain it's the same as being class president. Because if you think about 20 hours, that's a lot of time.
I know that I think the UC applications goes in November. So if I apply every decision, I still apply to UC.
Yeah, you just have to, you technically can apply to like other early action or like that, and then do an ED school, but you just have to withdraw those applications if you get into your ED school.
I have a question about recommendations letters. And if my teachers don't speak English, what I do? I have to translate the recommendations.
Yeah, so you will need to have your letters translated. Shout out at USA. Yeah. They offer free translation services, so accessible for you all to do that, but they do need to be translated.
It's not free, but we can work.
Same with your transcript. Your transcript also has to be translated.
Definitely go to the person. Yeah, if you have a person who speaks English and they don't really know you, and then you person who speaks Spanish and they really know you, go to the person who knows you and figure it out later.
Should I send the original, the job recommendation, or just the translated version?
The original, right? I often find.
Both. Usually, I'd say definitely send the English one. But normally, anecdotally, we normally receive both. And I think that's more so to do that if you're, when you're applying to university, so that way you don't have to say, okay, well, actually the school needs to have these letters of recommendation in Spanish, now I have to re-put it up. Students usually just put everything into that document upload. Yeah.
So the other parts of the application could be a portfolio, for example, a creative portfolio. I'm interested in creative writing. I know some schools do it, but some not. Do you accept creative writing portfolios, for example?
Sure. Do you want to just go down the line? So when you're applying to Northwestern, unless you're applying for one of the performing arts majors and are being in School of Music, we do not accept portfolios. So that's creative writing, art theory, and practice. The reason is that I could be reading your application for creative writing. I also could be reading your application for dance, and you do not want me to judge your dance. So we also understand too that not everyone will have equal access to those things. So say if you've never taken a creative writing class, I don't want you to, write the like Homer's The Odyssey without taking a class. So that's our philosophy for that. Specifically for our creative writing program, it's actually a program that you apply to once you're on our campus. So most students will typically apply as an English major and then use their writing supplements to detail specifically the creative writing track.
Yeah, Vanderbilt basically has the same answer. Like, we will accept it, you can submit it, but it's me reading it, and I was a history major, so like, I'm not going to be the best. Like, it's just basically to show that, like, yeah, I can do this, but it's not being used to help your application.
Yeah, our answer is similar that to both. That you can submit similar, but because we have to keep it equitable. But there are certain arts areas where we will receive, and it gets rated. Music is one. But recently, this year, we decided to pull out visual arts just because the arts department, it's such, thousands of applications. They were like, I don't know if we can handle this. But so music, yes, it is officially one that I would say submit. But the writing one, the good news is you have so much opportunity to demonstrate that in all of your essays and supplementals, which is great.
Yeah, same answer, specifically for writing. There's an additional information section on your application where you can feel free to submit those things. But we're not going to be, I'm not going to be looking at it and judging you based on your ability to creatively write. I'm going to be thinking about all of the other components, so very similarly, but we'll demonstrate that interest in that area. But again, we don't admit into specific programs, so that's also not going to be like, if you don't have a portfolio, I wish you had submitted a portfolio, because you're not being admitted into specifically like the writing seminars program. So.
Hi, nice to meet you. I wanted to ask about essays. Do you have any recommendation or some advice for them?
I'll start. Why don't we go this way?
Okay. So we see students write about a number of different topics. It's not really the topic that we're really worried about. I think the most successful essays that at least that I read, we read thousands of essays, are those that we walk away from knowing a lot more about you as a person. The whole point is for us to learn more about you. So if students are just kind of repeating their resume or their list of activities, that's not going to provide us with any new additional information. We want to learn about you, other things that aren't showing up in other areas. Maybe it is about one specific activity that you are really passionate about. You want to tell us again the why behind that. Feel free to use the essays for that. But just make sure that you're tying it back to you. You're telling us more about who you are as a person. That's my biggest piece of advice. Thank you.
That's great.
Last question.
This one's particularly for Hopkins. I need a financial aid to attend university, but I get aware, but it was like merit-based scholarships or aid. I didn't get that. How that sounds out.
Yeah, so at Hopkins, we are need aware, which means that that's gonna fall in the admissions review process. So that's gonna be a part of whether we admit you or whether or not we admit you. It is something that happens at the end of the process, similar to what my colleagues were saying. So we'll see if you're a really great fit. If you are great, then we'll look at the finances. But for all students, so no matter who you are, we're gonna need 100% of demonstrated need. So what that means is if you're admitted into the university, our financial aid office comes up with a number, what they think your family can contribute to college. So if that number is really low, Hopkins is gonna cover the entire rest through grants and scholarships, things that don't have to be repaid. We do have merit scholarships. You don't need to apply for those. You're automatically considered when you apply to the university. But I will say only about 10% of our incoming class will get those merit-based scholarships. The rest of the aid comes through need-based aid. That's something that we prioritize in our process.
So it's the same like our merit-based scholarships, like food scholarships, or just?
Yes, so those are gonna be full scholarships.
Should I apply? If I apply for financial aid, am I still considered for these scholarships?
Yes, yep.
Thank you so much, friends. I know I don't want to keep you guys too long. If you have any other questions, feel free to contact. I'll be here, and you say as well. I'll be here in a couple minutes. Feel free to contact us, and we also have the contacts. Have very specific questions for that. We want to let them enjoy
And just
the city
know,
a little bit.
we are like really just know, like I hope you now, like we could have done this virtually, you could have read of us. Know that we are so grateful to read what you write, and also know that we've walked in your shoes. Some of us applied for a lot of financial aid when we were at your age. Some of us didn't. Now some of us as parents have kids going through what you're going through. So I've been on both sides of it, but just know that like these three have kind of just been through what you're going through in some ways, and they've lived experience. But I guess I should tell you that there's so much empathy in all this. It is like, we could all work for a lot of universities where it's like 1,600, 42, all these grades. No way, we wouldn't want to do it. So we really, I guess I'd say, don't be afraid to write with emotion and put out there, because we are so grateful to read it. We read it with a lot of care. And when literally we walked in your shoes not long ago, and I'm walking in them now as a dad. So thank you.
Right down here to visit. So
Now we fly all the way up. Go with that.
Oh, I gotta write our time. So what time should I tell you?
So what?